Two people can have the same dementia diagnosis, the same amount of damage on a brain scan, and still end up living two completely different lives. One is still handling their shopping, paying bills, making tea, driving to familiar places. The other is getting turned around in their own home, losing confidence, avoiding conversations, and needing help with things that used to be automatic. Same disease, same label, sometimes even the same scan. So why does one person keep so much of themselves, while the other seems to lose ground so quickly? Most explanations of dementia start with medical words people can't picture: plaques, atrophy, vascular change, neurodegeneration. All real, all important, but not useful if what you really want is to understand what is happening to someone you love, or what might still be possible for you. So let me give you a picture you can actually hold in your head. I'm Dr. Elias Novak, and I want to give you the most important dementia explanation you may ever hear. Your brain is not a filing cabinet. It is a city. A living, moving, connected city. There is an archive where memories are stored. There is a language district where words are found and sentences are built. There is a planning office that decides what matters now, what comes next, what needs to wait. There is a workshop for all the tasks your hands and body have learned to do without much effort. There is a social square where faces, tone of voice, meaning, and emotional signals all meet. And none of those places matter on their own unless you can get to them. That is the part most people miss. Dementia is not just about losing information. Very often, it is about losing reliable access to information. The memory may still be there. The word may still be there. The skill may still be there. But the route to it has become broken, delayed, confusing, or completely blocked. That is why someone can look at their daughter and know they love her, but struggle to find her name. That is why someone can stand in a kitchen they have used for 30 years and suddenly not know what comes next. That is why someone can still seem completely themselves on Tuesday, then seem lost on Thursday, then clearer again on Friday. The city is still there. But the roads are no longer dependable. Now, normal aging also affects the roads. That matters, because not every forgotten word is dementia. Not every absent-minded moment is disease. As we get older, the city gets slower. Traffic lights take longer. Road signs are less obvious. A familiar route might take an extra minute. You walk into a room and forget why you went there. You lose your glasses while they are sitting on your head. You need a second to pull up a name you absolutely know. That can be normal aging. The route is slower, but it still works. Dementia is different. In dementia, the problem is not just slowness. It is breakdown. It is unreliability. It is the road being there one day, then full of holes the next. It is the bridge to the language district suddenly becoming so narrow that the right word cannot get through in time. It is the route to the planning office becoming so disrupted that even simple sequences begin to feel overwhelming. It is the path through a familiar neighborhood becoming uncertain, even when the place itself has not changed. And once you see dementia that way, one of the biggest mysteries starts to make sense. Why do two people with similar disease look so different? Because the question is not only, how much damage is there? The bigger question is, how many backup routes does this person have? If one road closes, is there another one? And another after that? Or was everything depending on a single fragile route? That is what cognitive reserve really is. Cognitive reserve is the strength, flexibility, and redundancy of the map. It is how many alternate routes your brain can use when the main one starts failing. That is why two people can have damage that looks similar on paper but function very differently in real life. One person loses a route and barely notices because the city quietly reroutes traffic. The other loses the same route and everything jams at once. Same diagnosis, different map, different daily life, different independence. And when families don't understand this, They often say things that sound logical, but are actually deeply unfair. They say, "But she remembered that yesterday." They say, "He can do it when he wants to." They say, "She's just not trying." Number trying is not the issue. The issue is that access in dementia is inconsistent. A road that opens in the morning may be blocked by afternoon. A route that works in a quiet room may fail in a noisy one. A path that holds under no pressure may collapse completely when the person is tired, rushed, embarrassed, or overwhelmed. That is not laziness. That is not stubbornness. That is what a damaged map looks like in real time. And this is also why early dementia can be so hard to spot. Because in the beginning, the brain compensates. Beautifully, cleverly, quietly. If it cannot find the exact word, it substitutes a different one. If it cannot remember the planned route, it leans harder on routine. If it cannot manage a complex outing, it starts avoiding unfamiliar places. If conversations become harder, the person may talk less, joke more, or let others take over. From the outside, that can look like stress, distraction, aging, or personality change. But underneath it, the city is already rerouting traffic. The person is working much harder than they appear to be. That's another point people need to hear. Dementia is exhausting, not only for the family, for the person living with it. Imagine having to mentally rebuild the route to ordinary life over and over, all day long. Imagine needing to calculate something that used to be automatic. Imagine knowing that something is slipping, but not always being able to explain what it is. Imagine sensing other people's impatience when you are already fighting through fog just to stay in the conversation. That is why compassion matters so much. Because from the inside, dementia often feels less like forgetting and more like losing your footing in places that used to feel safe. Now let's go deeper, because this is the part that matters to everyone listening, including people with no diagnosis at all. Where do those backup roads come from? They do not appear overnight. They are built over a lifetime. Every time your brain had to adapt, it was laying down roots. Every hard conversation, every demanding job, every new skill, every problem you had to solve, every place you had to navigate, every relationship that stretched your patience, attention, and language, every habit of learning, every season in life where your brain was asked to do more than the minimum. That was not just living. That was construction. Road by road, route by route, reserve being built. And then something happens to many people. Life narrows. Sometimes after retirement, sometimes after illness, sometimes after grief, sometimes after years of stress, when comfort becomes the only thing you have energy for. The world gets smaller. You go to fewer places, talk to fewer people, do the same tasks in the same order, watch more, attempt less, and slowly, without meaning to, you stop using huge parts of the city. Now, this is important because I do not want this to sound like blame. Rest is not a mistake. Retirement is not a mistake. Peace is not a mistake. But disuse has consequences. Roads that are rarely traveled become harder to use. They weaken. They narrow. They become less efficient. So when disease arrives, it is not arriving in a city full of options. It is arriving in a city where much of the traffic was already being forced down the same small number of routes. That is why dementia can sometimes seem to show itself all at once. In reality, it was often hidden by routine. Routine can be a gift. But it can also hide loss. If you do the same breakfast, the same chair, the same television program, the same walk, the same few conversations, you may not notice how many unused roads have already gone quiet. Then one day something changes. A hospital admission. A fall. A new environment. An infection. Travel. A bereavement. Poor sleep. A medication change. And suddenly the system that was barely coping can't compensate anymore. The family says, It happened overnight. Sometimes it feels that way, but often it was a fragile map, meeting one disruption too many. So what do you do with this information? What should a person actually take from it? Here is the hopeful part. The storm matters, but the map matters too. That means even when we cannot control everything about disease, we are not powerless. And no, this is not a promise of a cure. It is something more honest than that. It is a strategy for resilience. If I were speaking to you directly in clinic, this is what I, Dr. Elias Novak, would want you to understand. Do not just repeat what you are already good at. Build routes you do not already own. People love doing the one brain activity they are comfortable with. The same crossword, the same card game, the same news argument, the same easy reading. That can be fine, but often that is traffic moving down a road you already know well. What builds reserve more effectively is challenge, novelty, effort, frustration. The feeling of being slightly bad at something. A new language, music lessons, dancing, learning digital tools, memorizing poetry, taking a class where you cannot stay on autopilot. Your brain does not grow from comfort. It grows from demand. Second, protect the roads you already have. The brain is not floating above the body. It depends on blood flow, oxygen, sleep, hearing, vision, movement, and metabolic health. High blood pressure is not only a heart issue. Diabetes is not only a blood sugar issue. Hearing loss is not only an ear issue. Poor sleep is not only a night issue. These things affect the brain's ability to maintain the city. If the maintenance crews are underfunded, even good roads decay faster. So walk, move, get fitter if you can, manage blood pressure, manage cholesterol, manage blood sugar. Use hearing aids if you need them. Protect sleep like it matters, because it does. Third, keep the city social. Conversation is one of the most complex things the brain does. You listen, interpret tone, search for words, read the face, track the topic, predict what comes next, respond in time. That is not one road. That is traffic across the whole city. Isolation is so dangerous partly because it reduces all of that. The quieter life gets, the fewer routes stay active. So do not underestimate the power of phone calls, visits, group activities, shared meals, volunteering, clubs, classes, community, laughter, argument, storytelling. Human connection is brain exercise disguised as ordinary life. And fourth, do not wait too long to ask questions. People delay assessment because they are afraid of the answer. I understand that. But uncertainty has a cost too. Sometimes symptoms that look like dementia are being worsened by medications, depression, sleep problems, hearing issues, vitamin deficiency, infection, or other medical problems. And when it is dementia, understanding it earlier helps people plan earlier, support earlier, adapt earlier. Families do better when they stop fighting the mystery and start understanding the pattern. Now, I also want to say something that matters deeply. If you are listening because someone you love already has dementia, please do not turn this explanation into guilt. Do not look backward and torture yourself with what should have been different. That helps no one. This is not a morality tale. Not everyone gets the same starting map. Not everyone gets the same education, healthcare, opportunity, time, safety, or support. And even the strongest city can be hit by a devastating storm. The point is not blame. The point is clarity. Clarity helps people act better. Clarity helps families become gentler. Clarity helps a spouse stop saying, "Why are you doing this?" and start saying, "I think that route is hard today. Let me help." That one shift can change the atmosphere of an entire home. Because once you understand dementia as a problem of access and navigation, not just memory, behavior starts to make more sense. Repeating a question may mean the answer never reached a stable route. Anger may mean the city is overloaded. Withdrawal may mean the effort of compensating has become too great. Getting lost may mean familiar landmarks are no longer linking up properly. Silence may mean the word is there, but the road to it is broken. And if the family understands that, they stop demanding perfect performance from a damaged map. They start building support around reality. That is how dignity is protected. That is how independence lasts longer. That is how care gets wiser. So let me leave you with the sentence I most want you to remember. Dementia is not always the disappearance of the self. Very often, it is the disruption of the roots that allow the self to come through clearly. And that matters, because if you understand the roots, you understand why one person can still function with a frightening scan, while another struggles with a scan that looks similar. You understand why routine helps, why stress hurts, why social life matters, why challenge matters, why movement matters, why early changes are so easy to miss, and why support has to be built around the map the person has now, not the one they had 10 years ago. Same diagnosis, different map, different future. That is the explanation. And if you remember nothing else from what Dr. Elias Novak has told you today, remember this. Your brain is a city. Use it, protect it, expand it. And if the storm ever comes, make sure it has more than one